Douglas County, Colorado is probably home to the best school choice movement in the nation, starting a wave of exploration and change around the country, and then slowly it was destroyed. I thought it'd be worth taking a look at the whole picture from a guy who was there at the beginning, John Carson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, John.
Now,
Good to be here.
You still keep an education. You're on the CU Board of Regents.
That's right. Yep.
You just want trouble. You want people to hate you, don't you?
Well, we got to keep pushing for some changes and reforms in education, that's for sure.
I don't think people understood just how impressive the changes at Douglas County School District was to deserve such a national backlash that over the last several years throughout Colorado, the NEA, the National Education Association, had to parachute in to make sure that what you did there didn't expand in Jefferson County like it might have, or Adams County and others. It was amazing that this one little district caused so much trouble that it was seen as a forest fire or a cancer that needed to be eradicated by the National Teachers Union. Why? What did you do that was so dangerous in that school district?
Well, around 2011, we got a group of parents. We all had kids in the school district, and we ended up really with a unanimous board that wanted more school choice, to expand charter schools, to bring in all kinds of choice. And that's where we said we wanted universal choice. So not only the charter schools and the neighborhood schools, but we wanted kids to be able to go to any school that worked for them, public or private. And so we set that program up. We hired some good lawyers. We told them to design it in a way that would be legal and that would survive court challenges. And we did a pretty good job on that. But then we got up to the Colorado Supreme Court, and by one vote, they struck it down.
They struck it down based on something called the Blaine Amendment, which is in 38 state constitutions. And if you don't know this guy Blaine, he was a Civil War senator who hated Catholics. And so basically any state that wanted to join the Union, if you wanted to, you needed to have this clause saying no government money will go to a religious school. Yeah. And by the way, the Supreme Court of Colorado said you can still do the voucher program for secular schools, but unlike Sweden, we just found out, you can't do it for any religious school. But it was more than that happened in Dougco. The other big part for me was teeing up this Blaine Amendment. It was now we had a clean-cut Blaine Amendment case that was working its way up to the United States Supreme Court. It got bounced down once after for legal reasons, but it was heading its way back up. And with Neil Gorsuch especially, it looked pretty clear that the Blaine Amendment, this racist amendment, would have been found unconstitutional, which wouldn't affect just your little school district. It wouldn't have affected the state of Colorado. It would have wiped this hateful thing off of the constitutions of 38 states. There could have been nothing bigger, I think, for school choice than that. But the union knew that, and that's why they came back in and made sure that the people who think like you over the last couple elections were eradicated from the board. Do I have that about right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good summary. I mean, although we were able to sustain things for quite a while and had a lot of support in Douglas County, the issue was the opposition was spending a lot of money. They brought in tons of resources, and they just spread a lot of disinformation throughout the district, and that's tough to counteract. You really got to have a lot of funding, a lot of constant media to support your side. And, you know, we did appeal that Colorado decision up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And they actually did send that back down to the Colorado Supreme Court and ordered them to rehear it. But as you said, before that could happen, the new school board decided to pull the plug on the whole program.
Here they are having a program that could be settled by the United States Supreme Court. 90% of all the legal beagleism that needed to happen happened, and then we could have gotten clarity on this issue for the nation. But that's not what the NEA wanted. That's why they invested so much in Colorado over the last 4 years to destroy that. You also did something else that terrifies the union. You let a union contract just expire.
Yeah,
Let's
that's right.
see if I got this right. So every few years, the union comes back and says, we need to keep treating our teachers like factory workers. We want to pay them on a salary schedule, not by how well they do. And so sign this contract. You guys said, I don't think so. And it just expired years ago. And amazingly, the schools stayed open.
Right.
Fires did not engulf the buildings. Teachers were paid. And it's still that way today, but my guess is that's going to change as well.
Yeah, it could. I mean, what we found was that most of the money was going to politics. The union would just ship all the funding that came in from the teachers back to Washington, D.C. for politics. And so we said, if you want to spend all the money in Douglas County for our teachers, we'll continue it. But they didn't want to do that. So we let the contract expire. In Colorado, you don't have to have a union contract. And so we simply let it expire.
We also heard then how poorly treated the teachers were afterwards, and they didn't get paid well, that the turnover is awful, and that narrative seemed to stick. Why?
Well, I think just basically disinformation being put out there. I mean, the teachers were getting regular raises. We put in a pay-for-performance system. We were able to attract all sorts of teachers from areas like engineering and math and science and pay them more. I think it's been a great pay system, but as you said, the union puts all sorts of disinformation. They want all teachers to be paid exactly the same. They want to control the
they want
process.
Factory workers, and I find it pretty insulting for great teachers to be treated like factory workers, and even so, terrible teachers who can't get fired because of it. It seemed as though there was this model being done of local change. Yeah. Now, I thought that this local change could be revolutionary, that we're seeing those fires build up, and from Dougco, which proved it could happen, to Jefferson County, and the board there didn't handle it well, but boy, did the union come down and break them up. Adams County, Falcon School District, we were seeing this all over the state. And what I've come to realize is that might not be the model that sustains, because the union can grab resources from all over the United States to focus on one school fight, and school choice side just doesn't have that kind of resource to match them bullet for bullet, dollar for dollar. So have we seen the end of reform on a local level?
Well, I hope not. I mean, one of the very positive things we were able to do in Douglas County, which I think is going to continue, is the massive, well, I shouldn't say massive, but certainly significant expansion of charter schools. We more than doubled the number of charter schools, more than doubled the number of students in the district that were attending charter schools. So we're seeing a big expansion of school choice in Douglas County. So, it's going to be incremental. I don't think we've seen the last of this fight. There are movements around the country for tax credits, for voucher programs like this, for different forms of school choice. So I think it's just something that's gonna take some time.
Less than a minute. Talk to me on a personal level. Being a reform parent who wants these changes and putting themselves on the board, what was the biggest surprise for you on a personal level on how ugly this got? And here you are just wanting to help kids get a better education.
Well, I think the biggest surprise is just how much false information gets put out there and things like that.
You're being too kind.
Lying, about things.
I've never seen attacks on human beings the way I've seen in local politics over education.
It was very personal. My favorite story is actually how all of our children, I said, were in the school district. But part of the disinformation they would put out there say they were all in private schools. Just complete falsehoods.
Incredible. I just think it's an important story to have. So because this fight will come back, and now you're at the higher ed level, so you get good luck to you. I gotta run. Listen for me. Thanks, on KHOW Radio. Read me in the Denver Post. Check out the Independence Institute at thinkfreedom.org. We'll see you next week.